Hello, everyone. I'm apparently coughing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Quantum Catechesis. I'm Father Joe Krupp, and you are not.
Uh-huh.
What?
It's me.
Oh, am I on?
No, I am.
Am I on?
Now you are.
So did they hear the intro where I started coughing?
Oh, they heard it, everything.
Okay, well, hello, everyone.
Now they can see you.
And now you can see me. What a blessing for you. Have they seen No Beard yet? Or whatever this is?
Yep. The last 2 days.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, hi, everybody. Things are a little crazy here at Quantum Catechesis, mostly because of Carrie's drinking. But I'm so happy to be here, and I'm high as a kite because Uncle Lonnie is here today. See, Carrie was adjusting the camera so you could catch every bit of my savage good looks, so she couldn't push the applause button. My nephew Mikey is here. Chuck and Carrie and my dad are here. It's just, what a blessed day. We're going to do, of course, our questions and answers, but first, I want to acknowledge MSU's run ended last night. At the Sweet 16, we were defeated by a dirty group of cheaters. I'm just kidding. It was fair and square. There were people, I guess, complaining about this or that. I'm like, no, that was a good, hard-fought game, and I think we lost fair and square. Yeah. But obviously, I wish we didn't lose. I like the winning. But here's how I know the whole MSU U of M relationship is slowly healing. Right? Because the last 2 years have been the worst it's ever been, culminating when the U of M players started a fight in the tunnel. Okay, that might not be exactly what happened, but I do remember U of M tunnel fight. So clearly I've got at least part of the information correctly. But all kidding aside, a couple of my U of M buddies texted me. They're like, bro, we're so sorry. And they meant it. So, I forget, was it you, Chuck, talking about how U of M's response to the shooting at the campus at MSU, was that you? No, you're making a face. Somebody did. Was like, I think that changed things. Yeah. To bring us back into a normal rivalry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I do see signs of that. Maybe that's what's going on. So anyway, what are we talking about? Please keep in your prayers little Adelena, right? We sent her home to Jesus today, and pray for her mom and dad, Jorge and... they could really use our love and prayers right now. And a number of you have asked, how can you help? And I think we're trying to figure that out right now. Would you say that's accurate, Kara? Sure. Yeah, we don't really have an answer as to how you can help, but we're working on it. Yeah. So that's what we got. And a big shout out, of course, to Celtic Cove Catholic Bookstore in Oxford, Michigan, and to Michigan Catholic Church Supply, who we bought those awesome Marian. Did you see those? Was that your first time seeing? So Uncle Lonnie had not yet seen our beautiful new Mary and Joseph statues, and you know what the funny thing is, right? Now we got to cover them, right? The practice in Catholic churches of covering the statues. Have we done it yet? I can't remember. No. Okay, but so tomorrow we're going to cover those beautiful statues, and I blame Carrie. Carrie's not with us today. Look at her. She's like focusing. So I say we just get right after the questions then. Hey? Yeah? Everybody in? Okay. So, and a thank you, of course, by the way, for sharing and subscribing and all of that stuff. It means the world to us. And as you know, I don't ask for money. And any kind of sponsor money we can get is going to help. It's going to help. And the only way we can get those sponsorships is with commercials. Commercials, as my brother-in-law from Boston says. Okay, so first question. What stage or day of the wedding do you think Jesus... Wait. Do you think Jesus attended... Oh, I get it. What stage or day of the wedding do you think Jesus attended at the wedding in Cana? What?
Did we talk about this yesterday?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
did we? Good catch. I was making sure you jerks were paying attention. You got to be on your toes. I'm crazy sharp here. And by the way, going on almost no sleep. Chuck got almost no sleep last night. Did you get sleep last night?
Not when you kept hogging the covers.
Yeah, by the way, sorry. But not really. Did anyone else have trouble sleeping last night? Seriously, or was this just my head? So it was Chuck and I. Huh. Oddly enough, the dog did fine. Okay, Father, you mentioned yesterday during a QC topic about the connection between these Bible readings and the action of Jesus. These Bible readings. My friend quotes the Old Testament without context as if it addresses what is happening now. Hasn't the actions of Jesus served to fulfill and resolve the prophecies of the Old Testament? Please do that show. I think I get it. Or no. Carrie's giving me a look. Like, oh no, you're giving the screen a look. Okay. I think a good way to think about it is this. Jesus is the fulfillment of everything promised in the Old Testament. And people who use the Old Testament as a way of predicting the future, I believe are sinning. Yeah. What do you think? Yeah. That Jesus flat out said, it is not for you to know the day or the hour. And then he says, the Son of Man doesn't know the day or the hour, only my Father in heaven. So I think I understand what you're asking. And you're right. A very good way to read the Old Testament, or how's this? To read the New Testament is to see in the life, death, resurrection, and ministry of Jesus as a fulfillment of everything promised in the Old, right? That's a great way to think of it. And there's a million little examples. The first one that comes to mind, which is a minor one, but I just think it's so amazing. If you take a map of the ancient Near East and, well, of what we call Israel now. How's that? And Syria and Jordan and a couple other places. And if you take a map and you mark down everywhere the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant went, right? The thing that had the 10 Commandments in it, the bones of Joseph, the patriarch, the rock that gave them water, and there was also manna in there, I'm pretty sure. Aaron's rod was in there, that's right. If you follow a map as to where that went, Mary went all those places in that order, right? And it wasn't that Mary was sitting there going, well, I'm going to follow the Ark of the Covenant. It was the Lord fulfilling, right? She, the new Ark of the Covenant, carrying within her God himself. It's pretty cool. And there's a ton of stuff like that. Right? A whole ton of stuff all through the Old Testament showing how the life, death, ministry, and resurrection of Jesus is a fulfillment. Like even, how's this? Think of the first congregation of Jews. You had about 78 of them. Jacob, the patriarch, his 12 boys, and their kids. And also Jacob had 2 girls, if I remember right, named Diana and Wendy. Okay, I'm going to be totally honest. I said Diana because I love my niece. Actually, do you know what? Dinah, right? No. Well, anyway, sorry. And what did they do? They were all in Israel. There was danger, so they went down to Egypt, led by Joseph. Yeah? That's what they did. And when they got to Egypt, eventually they came back to the promised land, some 40 years later or 70 years later. Wait, actually, a lot longer than that. Yeah, you're right. And how did they come back? Through the Exodus event, being freed from slavery, blah, blah, blah. So there's a billion there, right? Look at what happened with Jesus. We start in Bethlehem, the city of David. We move into Egypt. Joseph, again, a guy named Joseph, leads this new Israel, Jesus, into Egypt. And then when Jesus comes back, what is he? He's baptized, right? Just like we say the splitting of the waters of the Red Sea are a prefigurement of baptism. Guys, I can do this all day. But you get the idea, and it's so hard to not keep going, right? It is. The hardest thing right now, there's so many, is to not just say, okay, kick back for the next hour. All we're going to do is look at some of the ways the life, ministry, death, and resurrection of Jesus. How's this one? Last one, I promise. Right? The Tower of Babel. A whole bunch of people come together and they want to do something good. They want to be closer to God. So by their human efforts, God didn't ask them to do this. They decide we're going to build a tower to heaven. Remember this? And so by human effort, they start building their way up. And what does God have to do? He confuses them by mixing up their languages. Okay? Now jump ahead 3,000 years, and there's a whole bunch of people together, and now the Lord has given them the means to get to heaven and the invitation, because God initiates. And how does he show that forth? By joining them under one language, right? Tongues. They all began to speak in tongues and were speaking in languages they didn't know but could suddenly understand. So I think I'm answering your questions. A question. I hope you are. I am, but if not, it's Uncle Lonnie's fault.
I'll take it.
Can I give a shout out to Todd? Is that all right?
Yes.
Yes. I want to give a shout out to Todd at Flint Assembly, which used to be called Truck and Bus.
He said
Yeah.
that.
Did he? Okay. Wherever you are watching from, please submit your questions there. I don't get it.
He asked, where can I submit my questions? I can't find them.
Oh, you're making a note for me to tell him. Okay, Todd at Truck and Bus or Flint Assembly, whatever questions you have, just submit them by whatever means you're watching this, right? If it's YouTube or Facebook or TikTok.
Not true.
Not true at all. Whatever it is, just type that question and Carrie will get it up here. And hopefully I'll get to it. Yeah? I think I answered your question. So, way to go, Todd. Thank you. I'm so glad you're building trucks, right? So for those of you who don't know, I think I'm right. They build the heavy duty trucks there, right? The Chevy 2500s, the Chevy 3500s, the ambulances, the fire trucks, all of that built right here in Flint. In fact, you may remember one of my favorite commercials GM ever did, because I'm a GM boy, and their commercials usually stink. The worst. Yeah. Except for Like a Rock. When the September 11th terrorist attack occurred, the New York Fire Department lost a ton of fire trucks and ambulances and all this. And I don't know if you remember, beautiful commercial. They showed the guys in Flint, and they used real film, building the new fire trucks, building the new ambulances, building the new stuff. And then the last thing you saw was a guy from Flint throwing his keys to the New York Fire Department. And it was so, like, I'm getting goosebumps just telling you that. It was a great commercial. And of course, Chevy being Chevy, they ran it once and quit. But they did run the stupid Buick. Oh, stop that commercial in the name of Jesus. Do you know what commercial I'm talking about? Where they have that. Oh, gosh. It's Buick. It's a dignified, like, retiree car. A great car. Every boy in Genesee County growing up longed for the retirement day when you bought your first Buick. And they're like, okay. Lonnie, please quit obsessing. It's weird. Father, how many orders of priesthood are there? Can a monk celebrate Mass? Okay, these are two questions. Okay? In terms of orders of priesthood, what I'd love for you to do is think about this. There's basically two kinds of priests, okay? There's diocesan priest, or you might say secular priest, and there's religious priests, okay? Both are Catholic, both blah, blah. So let's take my best friend in the world, Father Jeff Rose. He is a religious priest. I am a diocesan, or sometimes they say secular priest. What does secular mean? Of the world, meaning I'm in the world, I'm in the world, right? Lonnie is laughing at me because I am not supposed to be of the world. Scripture might have something to say about this. For example, you are not of this world, which my mom used to say, but I think she meant something totally different. So what's the difference between a religious priest and a diocesan priest? Let's start with diocesan because it's the easiest to explain. I'm going to cough. A diocesan priest, and this is going to shock you, is tied to a diocese. You're welcome. Yeah. So me, although I was born and baptized in the Saginaw Diocese, they didn't want me, so I'm in the Lansing Diocese. What does that mean? For the rest of my life, as a priest, I will serve within the geographical area
which is the Lansing Diocese. And if you want, take out a map and look. Well, don't take out a map. You got to look it up. The secular people aren't printing diocesan maps. They're weirdly shaped, right? Lansing Diocese is very long, fat in the middle, and narrower at the top and bottom, just like me. Yeah. I'll be honest. I think I'm really funny today, and none of you do. Not one of you. Like, Mikey's laughing because he's my godson and he loves me. And even that was like a, yeah, I love my uncle. Yeah, see? You know, you might not remember this when, you, of course, I don't think you were born. Your sister, Elizabeth, she had this thing we called her social laugh. Right, so she was a squiggly. I mean, just a little boogly. And if we all started laughing, she would go, ha, ha, ha. Like she knew she was supposed to do this, right? Because all the tall people were, and we called it it was awesome. Okay, so a diocesan priest will always serve within his geographical boundaries. He will always, what will his charism be, his ministry, whatever his bishop tells him it is. So sometimes my ministry was to teach high school kids and do exorcisms. Just kidding. Sometimes my ministry was to serve at a parish. Sometimes my ministry was to serve college students and do exorcisms. My current charism is to serve as pastor at St. Mark and Holy Family. And, and I'm also a dean now. Have I talked people through this? Basically, guys, I'm super important now, and I'm going to have to change all of my friends. Did I tell you one of these young priests who cares about this stuff wrote me an email because I sent an email and I signed it, sincerely FJK, Father Joe Krupp. That's how I sign everything. He was like, no, you are the very Reverend Joseph Krupp now because you're a dean. And so I wrote him back, thanks, FJK. So I didn't know this, but apparently I'm very reverend now. And I expect all you jerks to bow down and worship me at your earliest convenience. So that's diocesan priesthood. What else? Diocesan priesthood, I get paid. The government considers me, help me out, Chuck, a self-employed contracted employee. And what does that mean? It means they take all of my money every year. I'm not bitter. But every once in a while, it's funny. Some idiot on Twitter will be like, well, you should pay taxes. I'm like, I do. I pay more than, I bet I pay a higher percentage than you living in your mom's basement. Was that out loud? Carrie's shaking her head in disgust. Is that at me? Yes. She's saying, yes, I am disgusted with you. Okay. So I pay taxes, but I also keep whatever money the government doesn't steal from me. Yeah. So if whatever my pay is, the government gets its pound of flesh, and then the rest is mine to use to crush my enemies in the name of Jesus. Maybe start a crusade. Who knows? So that's a diocesan priest. And then you look at the other kind of priest, and whenever you hear like Jesuit, Franciscan, Dominican, help you a little, bro. Benedictine, even Norbertines. Did I tell you I met a Norbertine priest once? There's like 6 of them left or something. Any of those are called religious priests. And how does that work? Well, their charism is set. So, for example, Jeff Rose, again, he's from the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. And they have a few charisms. One of them, they serve the deaf community. Right, so I think every oblate of St. Francis de Sales can pray Mass in sign language, right? And is, I believe, fluent in sign language. A big part of their charism is they take care of high school students and they run orphanages. So if you're an oblate of St. Francis de Sales, you're always going to be in that ministry. Geographically, who knows? Part of Jeff's assignment is in the Philippines, and part of it, I kid you not, is in Toledo, which just cracks me up. Toledo and the Philippines. You know what they have in common, seriously? They both have letters in the names of their city. That's a true story. But so his charism might take him far from where he was born, Adrian, Michigan. It might keep him close to where he was born. Who knows? It's wherever his order has other oblates of St. Francis de Sales. Okay, does this make it sense so far? So their geography is, well, wherever there's other oblates. Why does there have to be other oblates? Religious priests live community. Okay, they live in community and, pray together, eat together, all those sorts of things. And here's the other thing. If you give Jeff $100, he doesn't keep it. He gives it to his order. He has absolutely no income. He owns absolutely nothing. And there's a communal pot from which they all draw. Okay? So with that in mind, how many kinds of, what does it say? How many orders of priesthood? I think I'm answering your question. If not, let me know. Would you care? I think when you say orders of priesthood, how many? I have no idea, but there's a lot. Now, many of them are dying or have died. For example, our diocese had a religious order working within here, and they died. There was nobody left, right? So they got down to a point where I think there was literally 6 of them in the whole world. And they met, sold all their stuff, right? The stuff that their religious order owned, split it up between the 6 of them and joined a diocese. Isn't that fascinating? Yeah. So I can't tell you how many there are, but it's not a small number. It's in the hundreds, I would assume. Okay. And folks, make sure and tell me if I'm not being clear. So now you might bump into, and I have, religious priests who live alone and keep their checks. But being candid, they're really not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be in community, and they're supposed to be taking their goods to the community. Is that good? And then the next question was, can a monk celebrate Mass? I get this very confused. So I got a chart that I found. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And sis, I'm going to put my glasses on, okay? Because that's small writing. So what I'm going to help you hopefully figure out is the distinction between a brother, a monk priest, and a diocesan priest. Okay, so are all monks priests? No. But if a monk is a priest, he can celebrate Mass. Yeah? A brother is a guy who professes vows within a community that is monastic. Okay? He vows obedience to an abbot or a castello, either way. That got a laugh? He lives in an abbey on Abbey Lane, or is it Abbey Road? What was the Beatles album? I can't stand the Beatles. Beatles are the most overrated band in history, I think. No?
That's heresy.
Okay, Uncle Lonnie disagrees. Okay, but Chuck, you agree with Uncle Lonnie. You agree with me. Okay, Carrie, what's your thought? Are the Beatles overrated? Okay, so Carrie and Uncle Lonnie.
Early Beatles. I don't love
Oh, late Beatles. The Beatles don't like late Beatles. Yeah. And early Beatles had some cool stuff, but I was like, meh, it's okay.
And I think it's also not just their music, but they were willing to do something different.
They did strike out. They did. They strike out meaning set out. Yeah, I do recognize their bravery.
Lennon and McCartney were 2 great composers.
Yeah. Oh, you know what there's one song by them that I love, and you know what song it is, and I'm the only human. It's that nonsense song that Paul McCartney wrote. Desmond has a barrel in a marketplace. Bonnie is a singer in a band. I could listen to that all day. Isn't that weird? And it's like, I don't know if anyone likes that song, but I do. What were we talking about? Does anyone remember? Brothers. Oh, brothers live in an abbey in a monastic community, and they're placed in various assignments by the abbot. Okay, so an abbot is the head of the monastic order. They're like a bishop. When you take a monk priest, the proper term is to call him father, right? That's his title. He professes vows in a monastic community. He vows obedience to an abbot. He lives at an abbey, or if his abbot sends him outside of the abbey, he goes and lives there. He is ordained a priest by a bishop. He can celebrate mass, administer sacraments, and ruin a parish's finances. Is that helpful? So there are monks that are priests. There are monks that are not priests. If a monk is a priest, he can celebrate mass. He can do any of the sacraments. Okay, I hope that helps. And again, this little chart has this important footnote, because I did this once many years ago and got a ferocious letter from a monk who clearly had a lot of free time and a fragile ego. There are exceptions to everything, right? There are like you might find diocesan priests who live like a religious priest. You might find religious priests who live like a diocesan priest. You might find monks who live, blah, blah, blah. Okay. How we doing so far? Are people happy? Okay. The next question is, a family member was recently visiting with her siblings who are alcoholics. Oof, sorry. They were drinking, and her brother decided, oh my gosh, to gut punch her to the point where she keeled over in pain. She is now considering ending her relationship with her brother. I have heard you talk about forgiving others, and that does not mean we allow them to continue to hurt us. Can you provide encouragement? Oof. This is awful, and I'm very sorry. That's okay. That helped, actually. Yep. Sorry, Carrie and I were just talking. Come Holy Spirit. I guess, like, to me, someone physically assaulting you changes the relationship, right? And if they come to you and ask forgiveness and are clearly seeking to change their behavior, then I think Christianity compels us toward a gentle reconciliation, right? What are you thinking, big bro? Contrition's not enough, I think, in a situation like this, meaning they feel horrible for what they did. That's important, but that's only the beginning. Does it result in a change of behavior or an effort to change behavior? Addictive behavior is a bear to challenge or to change, right? And we all get that. So I guess my encouragement would be to pray for reconciliation if it's God's will. And if not, I'd stay away. I would.
Safety would be a concern.
Yeah. Because that's the thing. Like, I learned working with the police, and I know it's a cliche, but boy, I learned it's a cliche because it's true. Someone who will hit another person, especially, okay, how's this? Tell me if this is sexist. Somebody. Okay. If a man will hit a woman once, he'll do it again. Right? Unless there is a direct act of intervention and serious penance. That's not behavior that gets better. It's behavior that gets worse. And any sorrow they express may very well be heartfelt. But something's broken in you if you do this. Something, right? Gut punch your sister till she doubles over in pain. My gosh. Hope this is helpful. It's tough. What do you think, sis?
Well, I don't think that's particular to either sex. I think if somebody's going to do it once, they're going to be.
That's true.
Be open to doing it again.
Yeah, violence is violence.
Domestic violence.
Yeah. And you're gonna, but I'm serious. Women, again, with the police, I can tell you, women punch men. And men feel that helplessness, a good kind of helplessness, meaning I can't hit her back. Being candid, that's not fair, right? Physically, there's a physical gap between most men and women. Yeah. Okay. Okay, this next question, I was glad Carrie gave me ahead of time because I had no idea what this person was talking about. And I did some research. Seriously, this is true. Okay. And see if you know about this, Uncle Lonnie. You're a little older than me. And maybe this is from earlier days. Okay. The Diocese of Lansing newsletter, which I didn't read, contained a link about, quote, Ember days, end quote. Ember, E-M-B-E-R. I've been Catholic all my life and I've never heard of them. Me either. Can you share more about them? Have you ever observed? Or is it relegated to the faithful overachievers? That's fantastic. Thank you for your ministries. Oh my gosh, you're welcome. You've been a huge blessing in my life and my faith journey and are helping keep my college-age kids connected to the faith with your practical, love-oriented perspective and shareable audio content. Okay, so first of all, thank you. That is super kind of you. And to your college kids, thank you for listening, guys. Thanks for giving this a shot. Really, that means a lot to me. Man. Okay, so I didn't know what Ember Days were either, and I clearly didn't read that. Now, do you remember anything about this, Uncle Lonnie?
I read the letter.
Oh, okay. Uncle Lonnie saying he read the letter, but that was your first contact with this phrase. Okay. So here's what I found. I looked this up. All right. The Ember Days are special days for prayer and fasting during the liturgical year. So I assume like Lent, you know. They correspond to the 4 seasons. I know you want to leave me, but I refuse. Wait, no, is that Temptations? That's Temptations. Okay, Uncle Chuck, you have a job. To look up the 4 Seasons band and tell me what their number 1 hit is. Because I think there's a 4 Seasons, right? Oh, Uncle Lonnie cheers for the Beatles. Ugh. Okay. They focus our attention on the blessings of nature. On the Ember Days, we give thanks for the blessings we've received, but we also remind ourselves of the need for penance and grace. Now, I assume that's just for you sinners, not like me. Maybe that's why I don't know about it, because I don't need any of that penance crap. The roots of Ember Days go back to the Old Testament. The book of Zechariah describes an ancient Jewish practice of fasting 4 times a year, Zechariah 8:19. Christians adapted this tradition to what was referred to in Latin as quatuor tempora, or 4 times, just like John Wick 4, which Uncle Lonnie and I are going to see today. What were we talking about? Somewhere through the centuries, the Latin tempura became ember in colloquial speech, and thus the name Ember Days. Do you find this interesting? I do too. I've never heard any of this. There are 4 sets of Ember Days during the year. Each set is a successive Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. They occur every year near the beginning of the 4 seasons. Okay? Which is also a band. Did we find out? Is it a band or am I crazy? There we go. Okay. She's my little runaway. Okay.
The first number 1 hit, Sherry.
Sherry, baby, Sherry. Okay. Right? That Sherry? Because there's also Oh Sherry by Steve Perry. Oh, Sherry. Okay. So what are the 4? First, spring, right after Ash Wednesday. Summer, after Pentecost Sunday. Fall, after the Feast of the Exaltation of the Holy Cross. And winter, after the Feast of St. Lucy, okay, which is December 13. So a traditional way of remembering these dates is the rhyme, Lenti Penti Cruci Lucy, which is actually very clever, right? Lucy, Ashes, Dove, and Cross, which is also a band. No. All right, so we could go on and on. And I even have how we're supposed to celebrate Ember Days, but I think that's pretty sufficient data. Yeah? What do you guys think? So Ember Days are penitential days that we celebrate. It sounds like on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. And it says successive. So I assume they mean Wednesday, then 2 days later Friday, and then the next day Saturday, do you think? Or do they mean, I don't know. All right. So, okay. Next question. Our parish is starting an effort to track mass attendance. Saint NSA, pray for us. NSA? No? Okay, poor Carrie. It's 12:30. I want to tell you this. Carrie and Chuck have been in a car with me and at a funeral with me since like 8 this morning. So they are both so sick of my crap. Yeah.
I've been up since 4:30.
Yeah, me too. And here's the crazy thing. I missed an hour somewhere, right? I did. I think I fell asleep when I was praying, and I'm dead serious. Like a whole hour disappeared from my life. And either I was caught up in a temporal flux or I fell asleep during prayer. And I must have slept for almost exactly an hour. Yeah, who knows? What are we talking about? Oh, our parish is starting an effort to track Mass attendance, as in who is going to Mass, not just how many people are there. They have indicated that attendance may impact the availability of sacraments. Can you comment on whether this is a Lansing diocese-driven initiative, or if not, presumably it is a priest/parish council effort? I understand the difficulties of serving those that may not be sincere or committed, but I'm struggling with this approach. I'm considering sharing my concerns, but don't want to come across as critical or judgmental. Maybe I just don't understand the thought process. I appreciate your priestly perspective. And then, Carrie, there's a nice thank you note to you for making this podcast possible. Yeah. No, I love it. What are you talking about? So, okay. My first reaction was to get irritated and defensive. It was like, this is a bad idea, right? But then Uncle Lonnie pointed out how there was 2 years when I was down in Lenawee County, 1 year at the beginning, 1 year at the end, where I was responsible for 3 parishes. Was it a total of 2 years or 3? Was it 2 at the end?
You had 3 parishes, then you had St. Dominic's Hall on top of that.
That's right. That's right. Okay, there were a few times I had 3 parishes. Okay. Wow, I forgot all about that, bro. And yeah, I started to really struggle. I just couldn't do, like we were just talking about this. We did a Holy Week one time. And by the way, if there's any priests listening, which I really, really doubt, but I know I wasn't supposed to do this. I want to be super clear. But I did. I did 2 Holy Thursdays, 3 Good Fridays, 2 Easter Vigils, and 5 Easters, right? Remember this? And Lonnie drove me home. I was so gassed by the end of it. He drove me all the way to Flint because I just kept falling asleep. And why did I do it? We couldn't fit everybody in one of the churches, so we had to spread it out. And yeah, we studied the heck out of it to try to figure out what's the least amount of masses I could do where everyone who wants to go to Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Vigil could go. How we doing? And even, you know what, guys? This week, I'm telling you the truth, someone very lovingly, but sincerely and painfully, told me how hurt and angry they were that I couldn't get to the hospital for them, right? And they understood. They were like, it was a Sunday, and we had masses, and there was literally no way I could do it without canceling Sunday masses. And they got that, but it still hurt their feelings deeply that somebody they love died without last rites. And this is where we're at as a church. That it is not unusual. It wasn't unusual in Hudson. How many times would I be doing a hospital call and we had to cancel Mass because all the hospitals were over an hour away? And people were very good about it, to be clear. But as a priest, you're in a spot where you are going to fail constantly. And you have to make fidelity your guide, not is everybody happy? Because there's just no way. Am I making sense? So if a priest is gathering data to try to figure out, I got to look for that. I've got this many masses, but I can't do that many. Yeah, he might need to do a study to figure out, how do I maximize the possibility of Mass for the most people that want to go? Right? Now, to be clear, if this is about, well, you know, there's people who don't go to this church who are asking stuff of me. No, that's their right. A baptized Catholic, whether they're playing ball or not, I am to serve. Right? Our bishop always makes this clear. that my ministry is to the people of Grand Blanc and Goodrich, whether they go to church or not, whether they support the church or not. A vast majority of people who go to church don't support it in any real way, right? I mean, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, quite literally a vast majority. Most of the funerals and weddings I don't know any of these people. They're never at church, right? But I am to serve them. And if I serve them grudgingly, then I can guarantee God's going to approach me the same way, because Jesus flat out promised that, right? Hit me.
Now, your question was, is there an effort being made to see who's going to church?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I read up on that. That's the FBI's function.
Yeah, that's the FBI. And by the way, what was that? Where the Southern Poverty Law Center, did you see this? Right? Who have their roots with the beautiful Dr. Martin Luther King, have just turned into some crazy far left-wing thing where they classified, and you can go on their website, traditionalist Catholics as a hate group, right? And literally had in there about, are they, if you have a rosary, oh my gosh. And a couple of our FBI local offices agreed with that assessment and used it as a guide, right? It's crazy. Yeah, so if you're wondering, is someone tracking you who's going to church? Clearly the FBI is. But I don't know what your pastor's going after, and I think a great way to approach it is, am I saying something wrong? No. Okay. A great way to approach it would be to say to your pastor, can you tell me what this means? I'm not sure I understand it. Right? And if you can do that without rancor, like you did here, I think he'll be able to explain it. If they're trying to figure out how to serve only Catholics who go to church, that's a problem. Let's just put that out there. I think that's fair to say. It's understandable by human wisdom, but not by divine wisdom. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, he might be trying to balance multiple parishes. Okay. Has FJK not seen the movie The 10 Commandments? I have it on DVD if he would like to borrow it. No, I've seen it. Did I say something that I had? Oh, cool. You know what my favorite part of it is? That they got that guy who always played a gangster in it. Is it Edward G. Robbins? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Why are you going now, Moshe? What's that? Robinson. Yeah, remember? Because he was like, why don't you go on up on that mountain, Moshe? And you keep waiting for him to hey, copper. Okay. Can a deacon perform last rites? No. Only a priest. Why? Because it involves absolution and what we call the apostolic pardon. And that's why, and Carrie and Chuck help me with this a lot. That's why it tends to get our highest priority, right? 2 a.m? Yep. I mean, if it's last rites, if it's like, I got a cold, I will murder you for calling you. I will give you last rites and then I'll kill you. And then I'll go to confession. Okay. Our son is marrying an Indian American woman in a traditional Hindu ceremony next year. What options are available for a Catholic service or ceremony to also marry or bless their union in the faith? The Indian family is open to a separate Catholic service. Oh yeah, you can do that. The church has, for a baptized Catholic, this thing called, and of course my brain just stopped, dispensation from form. What does that mean? That means, so you got Uncle Lonnie, a baptized Catholic, and let's say he wants to get married. So by virtue of his baptism, he is to marry in a Catholic church in a Catholic ceremony. But maybe Uncle Lonnie says, well, I'm not marrying a Catholic. Then we seek what's called a dispensation from form. And if there's canon lawyers listening, I'm probably saying everything wrong. No, I think I'm right. I don't know. But what is that? It's a form you'll fill out. And in there would be an agreement that the Catholic person will do their best to raise the children born of that union Catholic. It's a big part of it. And then it gets sent to the bishop, and the bishop gives it ayuda, and you're good to go. Or you might want to, if she's up for it, have a Catholic wedding. You know? Did I answer? Or no? Uh-oh.
I think so.
Okay.
Sorry, I was looking at.
Oh, I get you. Do you like the soundtrack of Jesus Christ Superstar? Yeah. Depends which one. There's a couple of them. I like the one, trying to remember, what was that band? There was a famous band, and the lead singer of it played Judas, and that's the one I like. And it's 60s. I mean, it's definitely 60s/70s. No, I want to say Deep Rain, Purple, some acid. Deep Purple. That's it. The lead singer from Deep Purple, I believe, sang the part of Judas, and that's the one I like. Right? I mean, I get what it is. It's not theology. It's not good theology in some sense. It just is what it is. It's the telling of the passion and death of Jesus from a specific perspective. So this idea, like if this helps, this started in, I think, medieval times. The church has a tradition of what we call passion plays. And passion plays start on Holy Thursday and end on Good Friday. They don't cover Easter, right? They don't cover the rest. So if you look at that movie, The Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson, he snuck the resurrection in at the end, but he did it because people freaked out. Surprise, Americans were uneducated on something. Americans didn't get, the tradition on a passion play is it ends at the death. Why? Well, we die. We suffer. And that's it, you know? And again, make no mistake, if Jesus didn't raise from the dead, we'd still worship him as God. What he did was epic outside of the resurrection, you know? Yeah, okay. Whew, I'm going to get a drink.
Ian Gillian.
That's it, Ian Gillian. Nicely done. That's the guy from Deep Purple who sings, I believe, the part of Judas. Does that sound right to you?
Well, it says here that he played. Hang on.
He could have played Jesus.
He did.
Okay, my bad. I knew I had some of it, but so my mistake. The lead singer of Deep Purple, Ian Gillian, sang the part of Jesus, not Judas. The guy who sings the part of Judas in there is the one who, in my opinion, makes it. That guy was amazing. I think his name was Bob Jackson, Theodorus, Masagany, Pulaski, Johnson. Okay, Father Joe, what is your best advice? It would be cool if I gave you my worst, wouldn't it? Seriously, if I was like, my advice, okay. What is your best advice for helping a young adult back into the faith? My son rarely goes to Mass anymore, and I'm guessing his prayer life is limited at best. He has told me in the past that he doesn't believe God changes situations on earth, because if he did, it would be unjust, as some people suffer so much. I know he believes in God, but I see him one step away from leaving his Catholic faith. He enjoys philosophy very much and is extremely logically minded. I have given him Dr. Craif's books to read and invite him to Mass every Sunday in a loving way, but most of the time he doesn't join us. Any and all advice is greatly appreciated. Any good Lent resources you would... Well, I'll do that one second. Okay, this is a great question. You're doing great. Yeah, you are. If you are lovingly inviting him to Mass every Sunday, never give that up. You will be shocked at the seeds that plants. Yeah? And I mean it. Don't stop. If he says, stop inviting me to Mass, okay, call and invite him to Mass. Right? Seriously, just don't. Would you like to come to Mass with me? No. Okay. Yeah? And by the way, if you promise bacon, you do increase the odds of them going. This is a male, after all. In terms of the God changing situations on earth thing, I don't know what to say. Sometimes I think it's easy to take disappointment with God. I get disappointed in God. God doesn't do things I want. I did not want to bury a 2-year-old today. I wanted that 2-year-old to live. I don't know anyone who didn't. And if I don't address that disappointment, Lord, you know what I think should have happened, and I know what did happen. In the end, I either submit to God or I don't. You get me? Like, this is the part of Christianity I do think we struggle with sometimes, because we have very comfortable lives in the U.S. as a general rule. Even our poor, truly, are better off than most of the world, statistically. God doesn't do what I want, I would say, a lot of the time. But I trust him. And where I can't trust him, I ask him for help to trust him. My job is not to get God to do what I want. My job is to follow him wherever he takes me. Okay? And I think that's a thing we miss. Well, God didn't do what I want. I don't believe in him. Okay. The question isn't, do you like God? The question is, will you follow God? And I know, I think I probably harp on this too much. I'm going to look at you, and you can wave me off if I harp on it too much. The fact that we consider suffering bad is a huge part of the problem. It's why we're in such a mess socially right now. Somebody's suffering, let's change everything so they don't suffer. All you're doing is changing who suffers. Suffering is the only means to grow as humans. I don't know another way. I don't like suffering. And even today, this morning, I was praying that at Auxilium Christianorum. I can never say it.
Auxilium Christianorum.
That thing Uncle Lonnie's saying. And on there is a part about basically help me not to be afraid of suffering. And I always have to pray that a few times because I'm afraid of suffering. I hate suffering. But I don't think every time I suffer, things need to change so I don't suffer. I think I might need to change. And sometimes I just think, well, the world's broken. What did you expect? I think this is a generational issue. I think it's in our beautiful millennial brothers and sisters more than any generation I've seen before. I think the idea that I suffer, so things around me have to change. It's like, no, everyone suffers. We're supposed to suffer. There's no way out of it. If we take away all your suffering, you'll make something up. That's how desperately we need suffering, right? Perfect example. There is one culture in the world that I'm aware of, and this is from Dr. Kraft, that has had 0 suicides through its whole known history, right? And it's the Aboriginal peoples in Australia, the poorest. The more wealth increases in a society, the higher the suicide rate increases. When we introduce no limits to people, when we take out and try to flatten out any sufferings or hills, what we end up with are people who suffer internally for reasons they don't understand. Now, I don't want to sound insensitive because, of course, for some people, there's struggles with clinical depression, which is a totally different thing. Okay, love you, Uncle Lonnie. Uncle Lonnie's got to go because he's sick of you guys. That's what he just told me. Either that or he's got an appointment. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling a bit. The whole idea that I suffer or other people suffer so God has some explaining to do, I don't feel like it holds up to logic. Because if you take away suffering, we'll make it up. Yeah. Okay. So, and I mentioned suicide, and I want to be clear. I don't mean to be insensitive. Like, I get that there is serious clinical depression. There is spiritual oppression. There's all sorts of factors that play in. But in terms of man-made reasons that result in that, I think when we look at comfort, it's in there. We will suffer. The question is, are we going to suffer because we need to create suffering? Or are we going to suffer because we're supposed to? No? Okay. Can you give last rites over FaceTime, or do you have to touch them? We have to touch them. Or actually, we technically don't have to, but we do have to physically be there. Now, I have prayed over people by FaceTime as they were dying because I couldn't get there. I've done that a few times. And I've said all the prayers as if I were giving them last rites, in the hope that God in his mercy makes up for whatever is lacking because I couldn't get there. I don't know how far I can go with that. So I assume towards God's generosity. Yeah. No, you're good. When was the tabernacle removed from the main altar and then hidden from view in our churches? And who decided this should be done? I know when I was a kid, priests started doing all kinds of weird stuff. And people get so mad at them, but they were being obedient, right? That's the thing no one gets. Those priests were doing what they were taught. A lot of it, Bishop Morlino actually gave a great talk on this. He talked about how, you got to remember, American Catholics comprise less than 5% of the world's Catholics. Okay, we are a tiny subgroup in a colossal enterprise. Now, you take that 5%, and the church is counting every Catholic. What you and I know is it's okay. It's okay. Yep, I spilled some water, but don't worry, it just got on my keyboard and screen. No, what you and I know is for every 100 Catholics, statistically, 30 go to church. Ever. Ever. Meaning at least once a year. So now you take not just Catholic in name, but Catholic in practice. It's all good, sis. It's a very small amount. And I almost knocked over my water bottle, wiping up the water from my spilled water bottle that I knocked over. You're welcome. Catholics are a tiny, tiny part of the Roman Catholics in the U.S. are a tiny, tiny part of the worldwide Catholic movement. So when did they translate the Vatican II documents into English? Sometime after I was born, way after I was born, right before I got into seminary, the official translations. So what happened? People who could barely read Latin translated the Vatican II documents. And we ended up with a god-awful mess. And there was a lot of arrogance in the American Catholic Church at that point. Catholics went to church. It didn't matter if their priest was good or bad. It didn't matter if their bishop was flying on private jets and living the high life or living like a saint. It didn't matter. Catholics just went to church. And Catholics physically, financially supported their church. Like Dad talks about this. Most of his life, until the 70s, they published who gave what in the collection. Did you know this? Yeah, they published. Oh, Johnson's gave this much. Right? Holy cow. So there wasn't only religious pressure, there was social pressure. And what happened? Well, we had schools everywhere and tuition was about $10, right? The churches had money and priests tended to live pretty simple, believe it or not. So all of this resulted in, frankly, a church that had a lot of resources, had everybody in the world going, and could just truck right along. Once we started ripping out all the foundations without any explanation, like my mom talked about this, and Mom's was a big fan of Vatican II. But she said it was the most violent thing she ever remembers. All of a sudden, the church got ugly. They tore down statues. They had remember we talked about iconoclasm, right? There was a lot of iconoclasm in this movement. A lot of idea of, take this out, tear this out. But they were doing what they were taught in seminary. This is what God wants you to do. This is what the church is saying to do. And who was telling them that? Either people with a bad agenda or people who didn't know Latin that well. It's really wild. And what you ended up with was a church that got gutted in the U.S. Didn't happen everywhere else. And part of that was, like, you remember, you were taught this. I was taught, oh, Vatican II did away with Latin. No, it didn't. The only thing it says about Latin, do you know this? In the whole Vatican II documents is you must preserve Latin in the Mass. That's literally the only thing it says. The idea of the priest facing the congregation, right? Remember, it used to be the bus driver Mass, right? Where's that in the Vatican II? It's not. We just started doing it. Where does it say to tear down the communion rails? It doesn't. We just did it, right? So, you got the younger generation of priests now that sometimes I feel like tries to go the opposite direction, right? They say, well, the answer to this extreme is another extreme, and I'm not a fan of that either. The church is 2,000 years old. The Vatican II Council isn't 60 yet. It's going to take us some time to figure this out. Yeah. So, I don't know, like every church I've been to, now let me think, okay? I think I'm right. I have either moved the tabernacle back to the front or the priest before me did. We're getting back to it. Now, sometimes churches, like I know St. Gerard did this, and I thought it was very clever. They built a side chapel with the Blessed Sacrament in it. They didn't do it to hide the Blessed Sacrament. You can see it, but it's in a separate room. Why? Well, not that many people go to daily Mass anymore. And you're going to laugh, but I'm dead serious. Why heat a whole church? As Chuck knows, he pays our bills here. What do you think's better? Heating a room this size for 5 people or heating a room for 3,000 people with 5 people? I know finances play into this. I also know by having a separate Blessed Sacrament chapel, you do have the blessing of a quiet place to pray when maybe folks are coming into church and saying hello and being a bit chatty. Right? So there's blessings, but my personal opinion, I believe what the church wants is it should be visible. Right? I've been at churches where, well, okay. What is the name of that prayer you spoke of? Do you remember, sis? No. Okay. I'm sorry. If you could be a little more specific, I might be able to help. But I apologize for my ditziness. I don't remember referencing a prayer. Sorry, my bad. What is the difference? Huh? Oh, is it time to go? I don't have my glasses on.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So, gosh, guys, I'm lots of questions, and I love that. And I got to as many as I could today. I hope you found this helpful. And I'm sorry for the ones I didn't get to. We will get to them next Friday. Are we home next Friday? Is it a home game or away? Do you remember? Okay, we have a home game next Friday. On Wednesday of next week, I haven't decided our topic yet. Isn't that funny? And I apologize. I've got lots of notes on different things I want to do, but I don't have enough of them yet to make one show. But I'll figure it out, or if you have any suggestions, throw them out there. Thursday is the... Opening day is Thursday. Yeah, we're playing the Devil Rays, or they're just the Rays now, aren't they? Did you notice that? The Devil Rays are now just the Rays? I don't know when that happened. Seriously. But it happened because it says just the Rays on their stuff. Anyway, we will play them away for our first series, the Tigers were, and then we come home. And also my brain froze on whoever we're playing. But
What does your shirt say?
Oh, okay. This shirt was mailed to me. I don't know if she wants me to say who. Do you think? It's my girl, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. So, Karen, if you didn't want people to know, just pretend I didn't say your name, Karen. And, of course, shout out to the Thugs, right? That whole group of women. And a huge thank you to all of you who listen and to tune in and who share it. It does mean the world to me, and I'm grateful. Please keep little Adelena in your prayers and pray for her mom and dad, Brianna and Jorge. That would mean a lot to us here. I guess that's it. We're going to go see John Wick 4 today. Did I mention that? We're going to go see John Wick 4.
You did.
Okay. Because I didn't know if I mentioned that we're going to go see John Wick 4.
Everybody can meet you there.
Yes. We're going to be seeing it at the Flint Valley West Theater. I just made that up. I don't even know if it exists. Wouldn't it be funny if there was a Flint Valley West Theater? And
Curtis says the Rays changed their name after the 2007 season due to request by their fans.
Really? Okay, I get it. You can, but that, I don't know. The devil ray sounded very cool to me. It is a sort of ray. I actually looked it up.
You didn't want the devil in there.
Lucifer, the prince of darkness.
They actually have a manta ray
Yeah.
and a ray of sunshine.
Oh, Chuck. Okay, folks, we're going to cut Chuck's pay.
No, I didn't do it. They did it.
No, you're kidding me. They literally have one?
Yes, that's why they went to the rays, so they could celebrate the manta rays and sunshine.
There is literally a sunshine ray.
Yes. On their,
I have lost my faith in zoology. All right, so salad pray. I'll see you beautiful people next week. And on Thursday, we're going to do our baseball extravaganza, baseball and faith, right? So we found a way to jam Jesus into this whole thing. It's basically how the Crusades worked. And, all right. Then Friday will be question answer. I don't know what we're doing Wednesday. We'll find out. And until then, let's pray. Oh, I forgot. Please pray for the soul of Monsignor Gehring. His funeral was today. I couldn't go because I have my own funeral. Well, not my own funeral. Wait, am I dead? You can tell me. Carrie said her prayers weren't answered. Monsignor Gehring's a faithful, faithful priest who served in our diocese for a long time and had a very pure heart. I don't know how else to explain it, but there was no guile in him. There was no deceit in him. And we'll miss him. It's a big loss. So there it is. Okay. In the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Oh, Jesus, thank you so much for your love and for your grace and for your goodness. Thank you that you walk with us every step of our life journey. Even when we feel ugly and unlovable, you're there, telling us of your love. We ask, Lord, that you protect us from evil. We ask that you guide us and help us to respond to our Lenten challenge with great vigor. And Lord, if we're getting sick of Lent, or if we're realizing, shoot, I haven't even started, help us not get discouraged, but just to pick right up and get after it. We're going to give you all we got with our fasting, with our prayer, with our almsgiving. And we're going to do it because we love you. And nothing else matters. Please bless little Adelina. Get her home. Please be with her mom and dad, her grandma, her aunts and uncles, and all those who loved her so dearly. Heal their broken hearts. Jesus, you know the people in our lives that we love very much, and we worry about them, and you know all the circumstances in our lives that cause us to fret. And Lord, you know the pain of moms and dads whose children have walked away from the faith. And we give all of it to you because we love you so much and we trust you. And may Almighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. My Kung Fu is strong. I'll see you beautiful people next week. And until then, peace. Is it over?
No, it's never